Right guys, in this video let's look at basically track management, how to import things into Reaper, how to optimize stuff for your workflow, how to zoom, how to color, and how to a few shortcuts along the way, right? So let's get started by opening a new project. Don't save. So I'm making a new project now, and also we shall find where all the files are. So you need to have your stems ready. So for this explanation, I'm just going to load in maybe the first 5 files: bass, frame drum, piano, shaker, and then we'll keep adding along the way, right? So what happens is, when I've opened up a new project, I've opened a project template. That's the first thing you'll see. You have things which are already set up for my workflow, which is quite cool. I'm also going to probably look at an empty slate, so we'll delete all these tracks. So having a project template is quite cool. It's completely based on your workflow. So first thing you want to do is save it. So you can save it in your folder called Reaper Sessions. I'm just going to call it JSON song 1 or class 1, something. Okay, so before we record, let's first get things into the DAW. So that's just pretty much a drag and drop. Copies it, drags it, then it asks you insert separate track or single track. If it's single track, you're going to do it for things like sound effects and noises and other things, or voiceovers. In this case, since it's music, we do separate tracks. And before that, so I made a mistake there. Before that, you need to change the tempo. Highly recommended. I think the tempo is 105 BPM. So let's do that again. Separate tracks, and then it comes in, right? Let's just play it to see if it lines up. 2. Quite nice. Go somewhere to the chorus. Nice. Great. Also a few things here in this toolbar area. You have the metronome on or off, so get used to that. Okay. Right, and then you have a few other things. There's something called snap. So snap means it's going to everything, your selection, your dragging, your everything you do will pretty much be on the grid, and you can show or hide the grid lines. Since it's music, it's highly recommended to keep the grid lines, and then you do snapping enabled or disabled. So for now I'm going to disable it or enable it. It's up to you, really. So I'm going to disable it now, and yeah, so we've brought in 4 tracks. The first thing to note is this area called the mixer area. You can show or hide, right? The first thing to do is, just figure out how to show or hide it. Command M is to hide and show the mixer, and then you could also do Alt D. Alt D will toggle what's called as the Docker in Reaper. Okay, the Docker will be anything which is put on the sides, which you stick along with the arrangement window and the TCP. This is the TCP, also called as the track control panel. This is the arranger window where you have all your tracks. This is the mixer, but this is basically docked. So what you can do is you can hide the Docker, and that hides everything which was docked, either top, left, right, or bottom. Another thing you can do with anything which you dock is you can right click, and while you right click, you can always remove it from Docker, and then it becomes its own floating window, okay, which you can make big, small, right click, show certain things, show your sends or show your effects, and so on and so forth. I prefer to have the mixer docked. Usually it's a better option there. And if you bring in something new, for example, if you bring in something like a big clock, Okay, you play it back. This is what the big clock sort of looks like. Even this can be docked. So you can dock it in the docker. As you can see, it's now docked to this side of the docker. Okay, it's docked to this side of the docker. Now, what you could also do is you could right click and undock it, and then it becomes a floating window. Similarly, if you bring in other windows, like let's say the Media Explorer also gets docked. And you can also put these wherever you want. For example, you could put your Media Explorer there or here. Just lost it a bit. Yeah. So you'll find the name hidden somewhere here, Media Explorer. So then you can move it wherever you want. Okay. Media Explorer is to get in things into Reaper. So let me just take you through a few of the windows which you can bring in or float, if you will. Media Explorer is to bring things like loops from your computer into your project. Then you have the mixer, and then here you have the region and the marker manager. You also have what's called as the track manager. The track manager, I've docked it here. Let me undock the track manager once. Okay, so I'll undock the track manager. Let's just go through that first. So the track manager is basically everything you can do in Reaper. You'll have all your tracks laid out, or rather anything you can do to a track. You have all your tracks laid out, and you have all these columns. So you can move them in and around you however you want. So I choose to have muting here. Then I have my name. Then TCP is the view in the track control panel. Right now everything is hidden or everything is seen. And then you have the mixer control panel, which is the mixer view. Okay, this is to solo, so I can play back and I can solo only the bass. I can also take these guys into record if I want. Very easily I've armed it, as you can see. And yeah, you can do things like recording, solo, muting, and so on. So I would advise you to dock the track manager, because dock things which you'll use very often. So you see it's docked somewhere there, here, right? Along with that, you have the region manager or the marker manager. Regions and markers are quite useful when you want to mark out a point, play back from a point. For example, if I want to play from the intro of the song, where is that? It's coming up. 1, 2, 3, intro, somewhere there. So I can go here. Maybe now is a good time to turn on the snapping. So I could go here, Shift M, and I can make a marker called as intro. Okay, maybe when the singing part starts or the verse. 2. This is my verse, so I can mark that out. Verse number 1, and so on and so forth. You can also do a selection. For example, if I want to come to the end and do a selection of the outro. 1, 2, 3, 4. There. Right? So this is my outro. So let's make a selection, and you can do Shift R, and Shift R will make this into a selection. So it remembers this selection, and you can even render this selection later. It's a very very beneficial tool to be able to mark out selections as well as to mark out points. So a marker will mark out a point. If you want to make a marker without naming, you can just keep hitting M, which may make it a bit messy. I would highly recommend that you name your markers, or at least eventually name your markers, and then you come to a marker manager here, which again you could keep it docked since you'll use it quite often. And check this out, it can help you really navigate well: intro, verse, outro, and so on and so forth. Yeah, so get used to your markers. So another thing which we all do or like to do very often is to do coloring of the tracks, right? So how do we do coloring? You just select a track, you can right click. So that's the mantra in Reaper, or with this DAW in general. Whenever you don't know something, or whenever you want options for something, I repeat, whenever you don't know something, when you don't know what that thing is up to, or whenever you want some options, more finer options, the magic thing to do is right click for everything, and it opens up a lot of menus. It may seem confusing, but I can guarantee you that whatever you wanted there, or the answer to your query, will be there when you right click. Okay, so same thing here. I want to color this track, so right click, track color, you can do stuff. Now, this is also a good time to look at a shortcut and how to set shortcuts. So if you can do it for coloring, you can do it for pretty much anything, right? So shift question mark takes you to your actions. You can type color, COLOR, in the filter, then scroll down, and you want to color a track. So you can either color a track to a custom color, a default color, or one random color. I prefer one random color, so I'm going to add and C for color. And if you run it, as you can see, it works. You can also close this, select a track, and hit C. It just gives it a random color, and then when you're happy with the color, you can just stop and move on. You can also make shortcuts for other things, like what I'm doing now is zooming. What have I done for that? I'm using the T key to zoom in, and the R key to zoom out. So to do that, again, go to Shift R, type zoom in. There we go. So, or rather, I'll just type zoom horizontal. That's a better filter. Yeah. So you can now assign the letters T and R for your zooming requirements, which is very easy. Worst case, however, you can always zoom it from the edges here, right? So yeah, that's about zooming. I've told you about the track manager. I've told you about the Docker. Remember this shortcut, Alt D, especially for laptop users. You can do this to free up your screen and get more real estate to do stuff, right? Also, remember, check your settings, your preferences regularly. I've told you things in the other video, how to set up Reaper, things like timestamps, and so on and so forth. Try to do that and keep your work optimized. Another thing you want to do when you're working on a project is go to device in preferences. Make sure your sound card is found in Reaper. Zen Studio is mine. In your case, it'll be something like Focusrite or whatever it is you people have. So make sure you select the sound card, and if you're recording, the block size should be as less as possible. 150 works for me. And when you're mixing and doing a lot of plugins and a lot of processors like reverb and compression, you can take this number up. This is for pretty much any DAW. Same thing you want to do with your MIDI devices. See if the MIDI device you have purchased and which you have connected is actually connected here. So you can find it here, then you go here, you enable input, and then you can get work rolling. Okay, I'm just going to import a couple more things now and show you another thing in Reaper, which is called as track folders, also what we call as busing. Okay, so let me bring in the horns. How do we bring it in? Well, if you can bring it in here by dragging it into the track control panel, the dark gray area, or you can even bring it into the mixer area. And as always, choose separate tracks because you're working on music, and make sure your tempo is correctly set to 105 BPM. Okay, so it's separate tracks. Things are coming in. Awesome. Let's select all these trumpets, give them a nice color. You should also download this SWS extensions, which I told you in the other video, and play around with it. It has some awesome auto coloring features. Okay, so I want to make a track folder, or a bus as we call it, which is going to house all these trumpet tracks and allow you to control all of them from one track. So how do we do that? Just make another track and drag it leftmost. It should be left of all the passengers of the bus, as I call them. Okay, and then you have this small little button here. You have a plus sign here, so you could touch that, and whenever you touch that, all these guys under it become the children, or become the passengers of this folder or this bus. So I'm just going to call it horns for now. Okay, and yeah, you're not going to really record anything on this, but this is going to control all of these guys. For example, I can hit solo, play. You see all the horns, right? I can adjust the level. I can also add, an effect. For example, I can go here, add some effects, like maybe a reverb or something. Play it back. So this reverb is now added to all the trumpets. That's without the reverb. So it's a great way to control your song and also free up your computer's resources at the same time. Okay, so that's your horns, and make sure once you make a track folder, go to the last track of the folder and click twice on its plus button. So you click once, that becomes its own folder. You click once more, and this is the end. This makes this the last track in the folder. And with folders, you can also sort of save your real estate by hitting this button. So this is to make the folder or unmake the folder. Then here we can compact the view of the tracks in the folder. Make it small or make it super small. Super small means once you've completely done with your editing. Okay, great. So in this video we've done Docker, track manager, busing, track folders, also how to make your shortcuts. In the next video we'll learn how to do some recording. Okay.